Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, even whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to today's Grain Market Blast. It is April the 3rd, and as usual, the awesome Angie Setzer will be giving a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, two disclaimers. One, legalities. So, as usual, nothing discussed on this spaces session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ or indeed the hosts, which, as you know by now, is myself, Mr. Ryan Paisley, and of course the amazing Angie Setzer. Second disclaimer: I'm outside having a pint of cider, so apologies if you hear some glasses clinking in the background.
A
But that's
pint
just
of
me.
cider. Is that
Well,
what? I love that.
did you not get my DM? I sent you a nice little
I
video.
just got it. I missed it
I
earlier. I
thought, to
just
be
saw it.
honest,
I'm
it
jealous.
was a proper old person's moment because I thought I was taking a photo, and then when I sent it to you, I was like, oh shit, that's a video.
That just made my entire day. I don't care what happens the rest of the day. Ryan in full on boomer mode made mine.
Yeah, I was like, is this thing on?
Yeah, right. What are we doing here? I don't even understand. What button do I push? I
Yeah.
would just like to start today by saying letters do not have a place in math. So if you send me
Yeah, oh
something with
god.
like the pi signal or whatever the hell that is, I'm sorry, I am sitting it out.
Oh,
So
you wouldn't be referring to this like amazing equation that they've used to work out the tariffs, right?
I'm just like, oh my gosh, my eyes just went crossed. I'm taken back to my junior year in high school. I have no idea what the
I
heck's
swear, I
going on.
swear to, I swear to God, I blinked and I had like internally like the blue screen of death that you get on
That's
Windows.
exactly it. My brain short circuited. We're done for the day. So happy Thursday. Welcome to what I am calling Liberation Day hangover. Does that, can we like,
Oh yeah,
that's,
shit,
we're
it's Thursday.
all
I
a
might have
little,
said it. I think I might have said it was Wednesday today. Is that this?
Tuesday was
Get this
Wednesday?
week over
No.
with, please. But
Yeah,
yeah, crack
whatever
on.
day it is, you're probably going to be wrong. But it is Thursday, all 24 hours of it. And so here we are, and we're ready to gird our loins. My
Hoi
biggest
hoi.
piece of advice to start is no one panic. Y'all have been panicking. Everyone's been panicking overnight, but let's not panic. So, okay, where are we? Where are we now? Where do things stand? And really, when it comes down to it, what I'm seeing, I feel like the consensus is, and this is not a political statement, of course, like this is a very sensitive time to try to navigate these waters, if you will. But most of what I'm seeing right now is folks are saying this was worse than expected. And I think we talked about that yesterday, where it was like, okay, if he does come out with a 25% blanket rate, it's not going to be great, which he didn't, thank goodness we didn't do the 25% blanket rate, at face value. But once you take a look at how everything is kind of thrown together and what we're looking at here, probably not the best. Like at first, it was the 10% blanket thing, and I was so excited. And then the second part came in, like his friend came in, who I was just not as excited
So
about.
just
And
on this, sorry to interrupt, but just be like, this is what an absolute, pardon my French, shit show it was. Like,
right.
so afterwards or during, a reporter asked Besant, are these tariffs on top of tariffs that we already know about, or is it instead of? And to quote, I'm doing air quotes. I seem to do this every episode, and then realize afterwards that no one can see me. But he said, "I think so." So even he
Right?
didn't know if they were on
He doesn't
top
even
of.
know.
It's like,
Did you
oh
see
god,
the there was a whole interaction too, where he's like, I don't know. He just like, it wasn't even, that wasn't the only thing he said he didn't know too. There was another question. Oh, about Canada and Mexico, why were they left off? I don't know. He said. Are there any negotiations planned with China? Not at this time. He like stuttered. Like you can just tell
tell
the
us what
poor
you do
guys,
know.
right? The poor guy is just like, why the hell did I sign up for this? Like it's
Yeah.
in yes, we're working our way through, but it is very much as clear as mud currently. And so, like,
Yes.
where we stand now is, and I had someone say, well, I feel like we know less than what we did before. Not really. I feel like we've learned, something. It just doesn't, we just don't know what it all means. Like,
And also, you made a very good point in your tweet. You were like, "Look, I'm just here to remind you that absolutely no one has a clue what happens next." And
there are
you're
a lot
exactly
of really
right.
confident people, and I love that for them. Like, you go. Like, and yes,
Yeah. Good
history
for
does
you.
point to certain things and all of that, but like, we had a lot of stuff that we knew for certain was going to happen after the invasion of
Yeah.
Ukraine by Russia. You know what I mean? And like, not a lot of it. So let's everyone chill and take a deep breath. But then let's talk about what we do know, which
Yeah.
is we have a 10% blanket rate that's going on to everyone. That's universal. That doesn't matter if you have, except for Canada and Mexico and Russia. But Russia, we don't do anything with, Trump says. So that's why they're not included. Canada and Mexico, we're going to revert back to, or we're going to keep the USMCA or the fentanyl, where they have the USMCA exemptions. and stuff like that. But
I think
everyone
I think
else,
that's a very good point. Sorry to
yeah,
butt in again.
no, go
But
ahead, yeah.
because I saw so many people go, oh well, oh my god, like Russia on the list. That's because they're already fully sanctioned. There's no
Yeah,
business with Russia anyway. So don't people should need to chill out a little bit. The fact that Russia went on there, obviously, as you said, the fact that Canada and Mexico aren't on there is because of how much they've been working together at the moment. So it's not saying they won't be on the list, but it's just there's more to
yeah,
flesh
they're just
out.
not getting the 10%. You know, the hard part
Yeah.
is you've got folks like Australia who are like, yo, put another shrimp on the Barbie. Also, we never have charged you a tariff.
I
What the
apologise
hell?
profusely to our Australian listeners.
I don't. I want you to invite me there to tell me how much you hate me in person because that's on my bucket list to go to
Oh no, I'll come.
Australia.
Oh yeah, right,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm there.
that's
I'm there.
fine.
Yeah, yeah. I
You
take
can
it
let me
back.
know.
Yeah,
But so we've got that, and then we have some other ones that are a little concerning, or at least concerning for me as someone who looks at like, hey, they're a major grain customer who, for the most part, it seems to be a relatively friendly trade partner, like
yeah,
Japan, South Korea. You saw Vietnam make some really aggressive cuts to their import tariffs to start the week, hoping to make Trump happy at 46%. And so there's a lot of questions too about what this means for business going forward because a lot of people had left, China and went to Vietnam, went to Korea, went to some of these other places, and it looks like your Asian countries that has happened in, or they're the ones that are going to get hit as well.
yeah.
China looks like they're going to get hit, I would say, the hardest at this point. They have a 34% total, though there is some confusion. Like, do we keep, like you said, like no one really, do we keep the other tariffs
Yeah.
on, or are these
Well,
new?
I did just see a headline just before we came on air, saying, again, I think it was Lutnick, it might have been Bezin, I can't remember which.
One or
Apologies.
the other, yeah.
One or the other,
They're
both
interchangeable
clueless.
at this point in
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
this is that
Former Wall
exactly
Street
that. Yeah,
guys in
one of
positions of
those
power.
two, Tweedledum
Yeah.
and Tweedledee. One of them said that, as soon as we see a drop in fentanyl from China, I think it's the 20% fentanyl one or 10 or 20, which one? I'm getting so confused already by the numbers.
Yeah.
That one's going to be dropped. But just briefly, what you were saying about the APAC guys being hit, I think an interesting one is the Vietnam. I know it's not really
Yes.
grain related, but the Vietnam one, because that's very high. And also,
Yes.
we need to remember that a lot
46%.
of yeah, exactly, and a lot of companies left China very right over the last year or so, or quite recently.
Yeah.
They've moved from China to Vietnam to keep the benefits of low labor, but appeasing the US in terms of not working with China. So
Yes.
companies like Apple and that who have spent gazillions like moving whole manufacturing processes over there and assembly lines over there are being hit very badly on this.
Yes, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't get my new Apple phone. I might have to go today. But anyway, so China's going to get hit hard. There is some confusion, like we talked about, where it's over 70%. There was someone that did the math, and they're like, China's rate's over 100. That's probably not accurate. We'll just go with that one. But who am I to judge other people's maths? My eyes have went crossed all morning thinking about X equals Y. I don't get it. But anyway, we've got all of that going on. The EU is going to get hit with a 20% tariff rate. Our friends at the UK only get a 10% because we love them,
No,
apparently.
stop it, stop it, stop it.
and like we said before, Canada and Mexico are not going to see a change in their rates. You're basically going to see the current 25% fentanyl tariffs remain in place on their goods that aren't covered under the USMCA. So what's been going on for the last few weeks continues there, but definitely, not great, Bob, at face value when it comes to what is it that we're getting and how is it all being rolled out. So, second point, obviously, is what is the reaction from around the world? And I think it's super interesting to kind of note that there's like this sharp, contrast, you could say, and there are some that are kind of doing both, but it feels like there are some that are like, we will retaliate and we
Yeah,
will fight back and we will, all of these things. And then there's others that are like, okay, well, it's way cheaper for us. Like Spain is one right now that's like, we're just going to throw together a $16 billion stimulus package. Like,
yeah,
here you go, consumers. South Korea is in the process of doing that, and so I think that that's one thing that we have to be careful with is like everyone, like I'm saying, we have no idea what happens because we just don't. And so everyone
yeah,
wants to say, okay, protectionist, this is what's happened in history, yada yada yada. Well, we forget that we now have what Keynesian economics, where we just think that we can throw money at the problem and it'll go away.
yeah.
Obviously, in 6 months, 6 years, whatever, it's going to be an inflationary issue that we're going to have
This
to
is it. This
tackle.
is it.
But you can't say that just because we're charging these tariffs, these other countries are going to respond in kind, because Besant, like you said, is basically said if you don't retaliate and you work to negotiate, this is the highest level you will pay.
Yeah.
And so that is the question
I
now,
think just tapping ourselves on the back here. Like I'm doing it myself, but no one can see me tapping myself on the back, so I don't know why I'm doing this.
right? The
But
people
we
at the
but
pub
we
can.
said, yeah, exactly. We said yesterday that this is going to be a very long speech via Trump, and we knew that other countries had their kind of remarks pre-prep depending on what he said. And we said during yesterday's blast that don't be surprised if, whilst you're seeing the Trump headlines land, like the quotes, you're going to see remarks from other nations coming in like straight off the bat, and that's exactly what we saw. So I think we owe ourselves a little brownie point for that one.
I'll take a brownie any day.
There you
And
go.
also a brownie point. But yeah, so this way, I mean, we're just it's still incredibly fluid. We don't really know. But obviously reaction initially is going to be very knee jerk, very, a hardcore, everyone just out of the pool. And that's what you're seeing. Beans are down 22 here as we work our way into the the new open in another 5 minutes or so. Corn's down 7, new crops down 6, wheat's down 8 or 9. Soybean oil's off a bit, pretty big because it's been up so much. And then crude oil, of course, is just getting absolutely slammed,
Yeah,
partly because there's worry over recession, global demand, what this means for the world as a whole. Because, everyone kind of said 25% blanket tariffs will result in what, an 8% decline in global growth over what, I mean, that's one of the projections
yeah,
that was out there or whatever. And this is worse than that. So, everyone's going to be selling oil as a concern. But then you also had OPEC Plus come in. Our friend Roy Johnson said this earlier, where he's like, read the room. And I think they did. I think they read the Dallas Fed energy survey where everyone was like, we can't drill, baby, drill below $70 a barrel. And OPEC Plus was like, let me help you with that. We're going to increase our production. And so there are some things that are going on around the world that obviously are a little tenuous, a little uncertain, and we have
yeah.
all of Russia and Ukraine too. There's that whole thing going on.
Oh
And
yeah, I
TikTok.
nearly forgot about that.
Yep, yep, and then TikTok too. And so we'll have to see. China responded, they called it unilateral bullying, but said they're still open to negotiation cooperation. Trump has said that he will reduce rates if they work with them on the TikTok sale.
Yeah,
Like I think that we're just now going to start to see really the real negotiation between the US and China and some of these other
yeah.
things. And so the developments are just now
I think
coming. Now,
and again, we a lot of people replay this. I think we get most of our listeners, people replaying this like in the hours after we go
right?
live
Yeah.
on this. So just for your guide, what you're hearing now, it might all be undone by the time you listen to this. Like it's
I said that at the
rapidly
beginning.
moving.
I did a
For
TikTok
instance,
yesterday, and I was like, by the time most of you watch this, you'll already know what the tariffs look like,
yeah, right.
and that's really where we're at right now is like anything that's older than 10 minutes is
Yeah.
too old at this
Well,
point.
again, some like kind of like second cause effects and stuff. So we just whilst we've been on air, so literally what 6 7 minutes ago, just seen. Well, I say we. So one of my minions has posted out on the PIQ Twitter account a quote from Italy's industry minister. He's saying we will ask the EU to immediately suspend Green Deal rules that led to the collapse of the car industry. So basically, because of the Trump tariffs, it looks like and the impact on car industry, they're now going to use this as an excuse to pull back all of like the green deals and all the green kind of ESG kind of measures that the EU were putting forward, which were considerable. So again,
And we
it
talked
has
about that.
ramifications.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
exactly.
had
Yeah,
talked about that as something, or at least I had. I don't know if it was here or what, but one of the things that we were really kind of, or I was thinking about, was what was the European Union going to do when it comes to the importation of soybeans? Like they have this deforestation regulation and all of these other things. So like, you're already looking at raising the cost of soybeans anyway because you have to source them from a sustainable producer, i.e., the U.S., who raises the cost of their stuff because it takes 30 cents a bushel to get this farmer to sign off on the sustainability program. Not, whatever. But, you've got this back and forth. We thought the US was going to gain this big amount of market share because of the sustainability or the deforestation stuff. And now, you're going to see that get rolled back a little bit. Like it's just, yeah, it's going to be something that is going to be really, really interesting. You've got India with the big charges. They've been refusing to roll back the 40% tariffs they have on food imports. What does it look like if they do that? There's just, like I said, no one has any idea what this looks like. Like we can go through history, we can say that this happened the last time, and it probably might happen like that again. But good luck, and I say that with the utmost
yeah,
respect and love to everyone. Like, don't get crazy,
yeah.
don't panic, don't do anything stupid, at this point in time, and that might be a relative term, but let's see how this plays out. And honestly, I I wouldn't do much of anything. I would see where we are Monday morning when we come in before
Exactly that.
anything else.
But we said, myself and Mr. Michael Brown said this morning on the Morning Blast recording what you do that, you know, if you don't, and me and you said it yesterday, Angie, that if you don't have to have risk on the table, why would you?
Yeah.
And there's going to be so many people like flattening books. We got, no one's even mentioned non-farm payrolls tomorrow. And this is, people were touting this as like one of the first like true non-farm payrolls that have been impacted by the Doge cuts and stuff like this. Yeah, no one's even mentioning it. So, there's going to be unless you're mandated to have positions at the moment,
Yeah.
there's a good argument for saying, do you know what, flatten your book, go down the pub. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased on that front.
Right.
Go down the pub and see what happens over the next week or so.
That's it. And a lot of farmers will say, I don't have that option. Obviously, I'm in the market. And yes,
No,
you are,
of course.
but you don't have to do anything today, and you don't have to do anything, tomorrow. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, if you're in that corner, then we need to be having a conversation anyway, me and you, about how we make decisions when we
exactly.
want to, not when we have to. And I know it's not that easy all
Yeah,
the time, whole other thing. But yeah, so don't, like I said, don't panic. In my opinion, we'll see how this all plays out. We've got a lot of very fluid things, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of uncertainty. There's some rumors that are floating that are probably very inaccurate. I think someone said, talking about a China soybean import ban. It's very unlikely to happen. They need some amount of our beans. Like, let's all not, just be careful not to trust everything that you see on the internet,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
only half of what you see in person too anymore, because God
Yeah,
knows. But yeah, so it'll be good. It's Thursday. Hopefully my thoughts and prayers to everyone that have been dealing with the bad storms and the bad weather, and all of that stuff that's been happening across the country here. That's all stuff that will matter very much too as we move forward. And so we'll see what today brings. But so far we just reopened. Corn's down 7, beans are down 21, and wheat's down 7. So not quite as bad as it was, but we'll see what the day brings.
exactly that, exactly that. Angie, thank you so much for all your time and effort that you put into this. I really appreciate it. I know our listeners do as well. And speaking of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and giving us your time, especially our regular ones. We really appreciate you. As always, if you are in the markets today, keep it tight. And if you're out in the fields today, stay safe and much love. And we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, guys.